Hello, everybody. Welcome to our third Thursday tea talk. I'm Lauren.
I'm Erin.
We're the Death Wives, and we are joined today by 11. I'm so excited to learn and listen with you. Um, you like to explore storytelling through an Indigenous-informed framework, the understanding that we are, all of us, walking, breathing stories. Love that. 100% agree. And at the end of life, it's those stories that rise to the surface, the unfinished threads, the family myths, the ancestral echoes, the holy contradictions. So today you're going to talk about weaving all of that together, your personal experiences from your own doula practice with an exploration of how story becomes both medicine and a map in the dying process. So thank you and welcome.
Yeah.
Great
Thanks
topic. Thank
you.
you for sharing. I'm excited to learn from you.
Oh, well, forever a student on my end as well. I've learned so much from you guys. So thank you for creating and carving out this space for so many of us that are in the listening, for what's needed. So much of what you guys have shared within some of your portals, I've gleaned in this work. So thank you. And I really honor all of you for, yeah, what you create as well. So thank you for having me. So happy to be here. Yeah, I thought of when I was asked to speak with you guys, what is the most resonant thing for now, 2026? What are kinds of things that feel still very relevant as we're watching the world shift? And just a little bit about me. So this is the topic today, story as medicine. Was raised by storytellers as well. My name is 11. It's a chosen name after my very own death to self process. Um, I chose a new name after some really deep alchemy in my own life. I think we all know it well. Those, really deep portals of grief is typically the crux. So, from my own experience, it was divorce. It started with divorce. And I was going in the world, I was kind of in entertainment and storytelling, actually. So, I was a professional YouTuber telling my story and also using beauty as a lens of travel to kind of tell people, about story while doing my makeup online. And it found a lot of success. So I was walking in the world as Lynette's name, my birth name. And so a lot of people still know me as that. And that feels really grounding for me because 11 is more my galactic side of myself. And I was born with 11 toes. So that's why I started just running with it. It was a whole experience for me to embrace all aspects of the self and during my journey as a beauty guru, I was hiding a lot of my story. A simple extra little bone in my toe created quite a story that I didn't want to continue of this like hidden thing. I would wear band-aids over my feet in photo shoots, and I just was really compacting myself to fit a specific narrative. So you'll see this being the through line for so much of what we're going to speak about today. But of course, as in all of us, this path chose me. As we know, death doulaship and this sacred work really chooses us. It's not something that usually, it's not, I mean, maybe it is. I don't want to speak for on behalf of others, but it definitely chose me after the divorce, after shedding away to old identities that didn't resonate with me any longer. I really decided to identity dissolve everything, go into the chrysalism. And that's what happened. So, yeah, becoming my own person and really stepping into myself as a mystic, an artist, and a storyteller. And then that led to further aspects of grief after the death to self. Then it was my father died due to COVID in 2021. So that was when another big rupture happened in my life. And this was after already shaving my head, packing my belongings, and moving out of the country and kind of identity alchemy in myself. Then it was another identity shift of like, who am I without father? So many of us that have lost parents or loved ones recognize that as well. And that's what launched a whole retreat series for me. I started a retreat called the Metamorpho. And that was where I opened myself to, well, I had already kind of gone down the shamanic path, more plant medicine work. I had been on that path for years to kind of help myself integrate into that liminal space and excavating the parts of the self that are challenging. And the Metamorpho is an experience that I designed to bring people there to talk about grief. Where else do we do these things? And so I had been to a lot of different plant medicine circles, and yet there was still this like elephant in the room called grief that still people didn't really know how to dive into. Even though we're, sitting in the most vulnerable moments, shedding so many aspects of ourselves, there still felt like there wasn't enough time, wasn't enough space, wasn't, ever carved out, yeah, with really sacred reciprocity for each voice. So I really wanted to create something for myself that I needed, and that's when the Metamorpho was birthed. And it's yeah, it allowed me to think about what kinds of questions, what kind of contemplations, mortality, facing our own mortality when we're dying to ourselves, whether it's through plant medicine or just through activations of relational rupture, all those kinds of things. So I started saying, why don't we write our own eulogies? Let's just really start going there. I want to hear from you guys. What kinds of things do you want to be remembered by? And so yeah, this is you know, a path that a lot of us resonate with, that initiation of grief stacked on grief, asking deeper questions, identity dissolve, and really, really falling apart. And so I wanted to be surrounded by others. And yeah, I started inviting people into the process. So that's what my retreat is. And hearing from people's eulogies of, this is what it began as a metaphor. I really just wanted to see what would happen if we just metaphorically started talking about these things. And it felt really cozy to be able to talk about this. And like one of the maybe, now I think the world is opening up. Now death doulaship and a lot of these spaces, death cafes, and they're becoming so much more popular. And I feel so blessed. And I'm sure so many of you resonate as well, because it feels like we're the weird ones for a period of time there. But now, as COVID hit, that was the crux for so many of us to find resonance together. So, as I was hearing people's eulogies, as I was writing my own, it began with like pages, of course. This is typical. And I relate this, and I would want to pause to thinking about in our own experiences as we're walking with others through death doulaship, how often that comes up. Of course, that's a part of this work, is to think about, how does this person want to be remembered, asking the deeper questions and seeing what comes forward from their end. So I'm excited to see that more people are doing this far before the timeline is at critical hour, the 11th hour, as they call it in hospice, of course, which is fun for me. Again, that this is all, it goes perfectly in line with a lot of what I speak on. And at that 11th hour, we're talking a lot about this stuff. We're talking about story with families. So in my retreats, it's causing this contemplation maybe somewhat earlier than people were ready for. And I'm okay to be that one that kind of pokes and prods and kind of, creates contemplation in a path that we're all going to face, as we know. So a lot of the people that have been walking with me through my curriculum, because it's a retreat series, but then it's also a one-on-one mentorship that I offer. So I started seeing that, yeah, it was like pages long, and that slowly and surely, as I was working with elders that were passing through, of course, as we know, if we've experienced a lot of this work, it becomes very simple. It gets it down to like one sentence, typically, how people want to be remembered. So I'll come back to that. But none of this was planned. It was an initiation that I stopped resisting coming into death doulaship for myself. So I want to talk a little bit about story, and what survives is really, as Lauren introduced, is I really believe that we are living and breathing stories at the end of the day. After my father died, that was when it became very apparent to me how, and many of us will recognize this if we've lost people or we're around this, in our own personal familial line, I want to make note of that we all are a kaleidoscope of different versions for different people. So stories can somewhat be maybe misinterpreted often, or they can just kind of, it's like big fish sometimes, you'll see. So the whole world revolves around stories. We're in a story war currently. You know, we're I worked in Hollywood. Weird, I say that very intently, uh, intentionally and intensely. Hollyweird is, you know, now starting to not be as much of the crux of where story is birthed. Now we're seeing a lot of independent media, but we are all living and breathing stories. So the more that we excavate each individual and allow them to leave their story behind in maybe subtle ways, whether it's poetry or maybe it's sweet video, clips or, legacy projects. Sometimes it's bigger for others, sometimes it's more subtle and sweet. I find it to be extremely important in the healing process for those that are, continuing to stay behind. So we work with narrative. Obviously, that's a huge part of being a death doula and why I feel honored to do this. Um, so I kind of created a few bullet points here. Story as regulation. We often see storytelling as how do I say? Well, it's been something that really helps regulate the system for since ancient times. Sitting around the fire and telling stories is something we've done. All of our ancestors sat around the fire and told stories. So this really helps to regulate all of us somatically from the inside to sit with others and tell stories. So I really, really want to make note of that. Now we're coming back into these days where community is everything. Coming around and sitting with elders is a lost and ancient art. That itself, in and of itself, is an art form, is really being able to be a good active listener. So this really helps to regulate the system instead of having to fill space with what's the repeating thing, the thing to share next. It's actually just to listen to stories. So this is why I love death cafes and space in which people can be heard and witnessed in telling a story. Really special. And story as coherence. This is where I want to also kind of add contemplation around that. Is coherence to me is what I've found, and I'll share personally and transparently. My father was a large story. He was a magician for a living. So he was telling stories from the stage ever since I was little. That's why you see this video, it's actually me in this video, and I'm wearing a hat with a Joker card in it. He was the trickster archetype. He was all the archetypes in the deck, frankly. So as we know, tarot and a lot of these mediums are story as well. And after he left, it was like a vacuum, right? Because all of a sudden it was like this big person with a big personality and a big story was just vacant from the space. His voice was very quiet and subtle. So I've found that in the integration process, and I'm here at my mother's property, that he and my father stewarded for now over 30 years. Um, so much of his story is actually undocumented. What a mystery, such a magician. He was the loudest voice in the room. And yeah, as he's now passed through, a lot of us have different versions of this man. Very curious for me. I'm like, my experience of this man is this, my brother's is this, my mother's is this. Other of his mentees, his students from across the earth that he taught magic to, their version is that he was a kaleidoscope. And I think that's beautiful. In fact, it actually makes for, a really, really whole person. Um, but I find that I not never living in regret, but I kind of go, wow, as a documentarian and one that captures quite a bit, it's interesting how the one very important archetype in my life I have zero voice notes of. I have one voicemail that he left, which I'm happy to have, and I've weaved into a song that I've been developing. But I don't have a lot of just him speaking to camera, which is interesting. It's like a crazy thing for our families. We're like, how did we not record him? So this is what I think of in coherence, because a lot of our interpretations of his story is different. And it's caused interesting rupture after, he's vacated from the physical realm. And it's also a part of our path. And so I feel now honored to share this with those that are listening, as legacy planners, as those that are walking with people through when you have these beautiful individuals, let's just be, intentional with sharing the aspects that they want to be remembered by. And that's where we get to permission, really offering the permission for them to tell their story, really important through their own lens. So I'm grateful I went through that initiation before we get to this next part, what I'm going to talk about, part of my own story was that after my father died, that grief portal opened for me, really deep presencing of the field. This beautiful creature that's here in the video is a dear client of mine. One of the first. This is how my death dealership got initiated. She came to me. Her name is Vanessa Joy, and she was a prior just client that came in to do an Akashic sort of soul reading with me. So I wasn't walking in death dealership at all at that time, but she called, or she booked with me and we did a session, and she asked me to, kind of just open up the field and see what I saw. She had given me one clue, and the one clue was I just see myself as an author. I'm going to be putting out a book of poetry in the next 5 years. So I said, okay, that's wonderful. Let's just open up the field and see what I see. So we opened up the field, and I get into a little bit of a trance, and I had my candles going, and I had never met this woman, had zero context of who she was, never, had never come in contact with her before. She had been following some of my stuff online, but um, opened up the field, and all I saw was quantum leap for her. I saw fast, you know, boom, things are happening quickly. I didn't see exactly why. I didn't see what that was, but I saw something pivotal very quickly happening and shifting in her life. And I was like, whoa, okay, my palms got hot. I started sweating. I was like, girl, you are about to go on a very fast journey. I don't know what this looks like, but that book that you wanted to write in 5 years, yeah, we're talking like 1 year. You've got like not, it's going to happen quick. So that's where it began. That's where our story began. And I get a message a few months later from her. And she says, whoa, Elle, I have to transparently tell you, I've been diagnosed with stage 4 metastasized breast cancer. And, this is actually what you were seeing. The fast paced quantum leap is, yeah, we're here. She's a wife and mother of 3 young girls under 10 years old. So her whole life just went into complete pause, right? And so many of you guys within this, experience know this from your own internal leadership. So I know that there's a lot happening on that end as well. I want to presence that and send love that way. So I had never been asked to walk with anybody through that type of chapter yet. I had walked with friends, but professionally, I had never been asked to mentor someone in my curriculum through this. And she said, one of my last wishes is to work with you in Metamorpho. I want you to be one of my mentors. And the way that I do this is just very humbly with student lens always. I say, hey guys, this is what I'm offering. It's a curriculum, but I'm a student. I'm going to be your mentee as well. We're going to walk together, but let there be no leader amongst us. I have a few different things that have helped me along the journey, and I'm happy to share, but I never want this to feel hierarchical. I want it to feel like a circle and a brave space, not even safe. That's not something I claim anymore. Safe is subjective. So I say this is a brave space that we're going to commit together. And that's what we did. So I called a friend. I have to be transparent and say I called a friend freaking out after V had asked me that. And I said, hey, it was a friend of mine that had just gotten into remission from cancer. And I had been, a dear friend in their chapter of chemo and all that. And I said, hey, what do you think? I don't know. I feel like very ill-equipped. And so many of us death doulas, I'm sure, have those moments of that feeling of, is this really what's happening? And that goes back to this path choosing us and trusting that the great spirit, the source of all that is, chose you. And it's an honor to walk with those that are, and it's not coming from us, right? A lot of the gnosis, the spirituality that is held in this space, call it spirituality, call it gnosis, call it tools, presence, for lack of better words, just presence. How simple. Being a witness and not a fixer, just holding the space. It's an honor. And so after I got over myself, and I said yes, and V and I walked together through her last chapter. They gave her 6 months, and she said, I'm getting this poetry book out. I'm compiling all my last writings. This is a video of her and I on the beach in Venice when she came to visit. And so we started just week by week working together and just sitting in contemplation, created that space to bridge between the worlds of the living and, you know, the completion of your physical vessel on this planet. So we were just contemplating it together, and I was so her mentee. I mean, here I was going, V, you taught me everything. Um, she would pose different things to me in the same breath because as we know, the medical system, of course, has all these different timelines, right? 6 months to live. So we're living with that timeline. And I was like, but let's just before that, what was it, the chicken or the egg, right? Now they told you that. Now you have this interesting linear timeline, but we know time is quantum. So let's just sit with what is. Let's just be grateful for each day. And it was a really cool time for us to, yeah, continue. She was sending me, lots of different things that were going to be put in the book. And she gathered her team of she was very serious about this book. She was like, it's getting published. This is not just a small little poetry book that's just going to sit on the shelf and collect dust. Elle, I want this to go out. I'm an excellent writer. She was in it. I was like, yes, with her all the way, and really proud of her coming from Waynesboro, Virginia, this precious soul that really wanted her story to be the medicine for her three young daughters that were, again, under 10 years old. She wanted them to understand who she was from the inside out. As a woman married to a priest, I'd like to make note of, she was married to a priest, and it was a sect of Christianity that was pretty open-minded. I believe I don't want to say because I think it was Methodist, or it's one of those. They're open to, like, the men are married to women. So it wasn't, obviously they had a family, but she came out as queer, and she wanted her daughters to know she was queer, even though she had never dated a woman. She was like, I really want my kids to know who I am as a brave storyteller, as a permission slip and a glitch in the matrix. So she was very colorful in a world that, can be quite black and white. And I was so inspired by watching her lineage be disrupted in, being a pattern interrupt. And I myself know that very intimately myself. I am that joker and the wild card in the deck as well. The trickster archetype, the one that comes in and ruffles the feathers a bit. So I honor V very deeply. She had a whole blog on Substack, and she would really break down a lot more, just even after her poetry, just to really create context. So she left such a breath of her lifetime in her writings, and she gathered a whole team, myself being one of them, and it's still continuing today. So the 6 months that the hospital gave her extended because I believe she had a purpose. She had a really deep passion and a purpose to leave this book, and it's called Held. And so one of the last things that she also put on her list was to go on pilgrimage. And she knew that I led pilgrimages internationally. So I started to get, again, those sweaty palms. I was like, uh-oh, her family is just going to be like, what is going on? She had not done much travel at all, bless her. She had such a heart for the world, but hadn't done a lot of international travel. I was raised in it, so it feels very, at home for me to kind of be anywhere in the world. But for her little small town, and especially her family, when Vanessa Joy gets up, in front of the family and says, guys, I'm going to Peru to hike Machu Picchu, as she's in the last remnants of her life here on this planet, I was trying to talk her out of it. I was like, V, I don't know, like maybe we do 2025. This was in 2024. I said, what if we do 2025? Maybe we'll wait a little time because this feels, I just want to make sure that everyone's, I was definitely wanting to work with her medical team. Of course, this was not advice from my end. She just knew that I did these pilgrimages. And she said, nope, I'm going to Peru with you. You're taking me. Get a group together. We're going. And I was like, okay, all right, V. So I talked with her family, and her last birthday, this was the day of her birthday, this video. She flew out her very last birthday as a mother and a wife. She chose to instead come on this pilgrimage. So we did a metamorpho pilgrimage with a few others. And she came with us to Peru and we hiked Machu Picchu. And yeah, that was a very interesting journey. So when we were hiking up there, I'll never forget, she looked at me and I connect with the elders. I do bridge work with the elders. So she got to meet one of my teachers there that I've worked with since 2019, and he's been such an ally for me. And she said, "You know why we're here, Elle? Do you know why this is so important that this is one of the last things that I do before I go?" By the way, I need to presence the fact that I was in the full belief that she was going to have a full recovery and that, this is the spiritual bypassing that can often happen in the brain. One of the first clients, of course, right? I was just trying to hold this miracle. And this is what the mind can do, that a miracle is to live. Yet I presence the fact that, again, the miracle is to release and to surrender. And so that was really big integration for me to go, okay, wow. She was like, "We're living all the way, baby. This is it. I know my timeline. Isn't this great?" And she'd have this big smile and she goes, "Do you know why it's important that we're here in Machu Picchu? For my daughter, Zell." And she barely made it through that pilgrimage, you guys. She got elevation sickness. I mean, her body was under so much because they were doing low doses of chemo and they were doing some, different things with her. It was very gentle. And that's why she was able to stretch that timeline from 6 months to a year and a half and get this book completed. But she said, "My daughters are always going to ask." And this is why we disrupt the lineage, because as a white family, it's so important that, just like the teacher said in Peru, the eagle flying with the condor is the prophecy. And it's not just metaphor. The eagle and the condor represent, yes, America as the eagle, of course, and the condor being Peru. But it's also the prophecy of us all weaving together and walking together and flying together and not being trying to compete, right? So that's what we're taught over there by the elders. And so she said, "My daughters are always going to ask this, and they can never deny that this was so important to me. Obviously, it's one of the last things that I'm doing. And while my family might not recognize how important this is, I know you do. And I thank you for being the bridge for so many of us to remember." So at the end of the day, we are living and breathing stories told around the fire by our ancestors. And that really resonates true when I think of this experience. And so many now. I mean, I've lost a lot of different, we all have, right? We've all lost different archetypes that leave such an imprint on our hearts. And so much of how they lived and how they died is impactful for us. And we've heard, I'm sure, maybe not. I definitely encourage you to go check out that song called "Sitting Around the Fire." I don't know if you guys have heard about Sit Around the Fire. It's by John Hopkins, I believe. Um, wow, it is a great, great song, and it speaks on this. It's so beautiful. And I definitely encourage you guys to check it out or use it in your spaces, use it with your clients. Wow, it is such a beautiful track. I use it a lot within my metamorpho containers and a lot of what I'm building. And it's fun. I'll make note too of this shot here is actually a shot prior to my father passing that I did from a random company. And I had pictures of my child self and my brother and my mom and dad doing magic together. And so it's so wild how some things, your other self is like your I don't like to do higher or lower. So it's like another aspect of yourself is time traveling, quantum time traveling and meeting you. So it's really fun that I have this footage now. My dad's in it and now he's passed into the beyond. It's really fun for me. So, what are we really doing as death doulas? Obviously, we're all going to fill that in with, like I said, the kaleidoscope of different versions and interpretations of what that means. And something that I just wanted to pose today is to really, really, really focus on the story of each client and excavate that like a whole portal in and of itself, not only to learn from and witness in our own lives, but to listen for the repeating story that we can help pull from them. We've got a lot of dementia happening. I know that for my grandmother, it's been a while. We just went through the death dealership portal this last month. So there's a lot of tenderness still, a lot of really beautiful contemplation and integration, right, happening in our family. A matriarch, a Maria. We were talking about that with the ladies before because they have these beautiful pictures behind them. But Maria is one of the greatest stories ever told, whether it be the mother or also the death doula, which is the Magdalene. Study those two quite often. Very dear kindred archetypes that I work with. And really listening and how to be supportive during these times, helping excavate with dementia clients to it's really fun. I've had such a good time with my grandmother because she would repeat the same stories and it was by design. So it was really, driving home certain things that now will stick with me forever. And with our clients too, the same. So witnessing some of the last things that my father was really specific about before he passed through with V, with like other clients that have come through, it's been really beautiful to support other families through this process so that this legacy is a living transmission. It's continuing to breathe life after the completion of their vessel. So, yeah, wow. Witnessing the last truth, naming what can rest, maybe um, I love to pose maybe options with families that I'm working with, whether that is like a chapbook that they want to come up with of their poetry. I work with a lot of poets and artists. A lot of music is happening. So I work with I do creative direction too. So I work with artists of all kinds, but music is a huge one. So coming up with the actual voice being heard, really special stuff. As we know, some of the greats, that have passed through now to hear their voice now singing to us, it's so cool and it opens up total portals. And then, bowing to just this whole collective story that we get to be a part of. And as we know, this is a very critical hour, the 11th hour for sure. We are in a holy war, a very holy war, and it's around story. And so I find that the balance of the narrative being both feminine and masculine, again, beyond gender, this is way beyond the binary. That's why you'll see that I always go by she, they, we. I'm driving that. I'm like, guys, it's she, they, we. Really important to balance the narrative and really offer a softness. And that's what I feel being poured out on all flesh on this day at this timeline in 2026 is a softening, a really beautiful softening of feminine stories rising as well. And again, feminine doesn't need to be women, it should just be a softer element to story. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to share today and pose to you guys. It feels really special to be one that gets to be, yeah, supporting on the story sector and continuing that from stages, from poetry books, from film, and yeah, all different kinds of ways. So thank you for all of you out there too that are creating these spaces. And I hope that this kind of offered some insight into how we can best support the others. The great gathering is near as we feel. So thank you for each putting one step in front of the other in our own lives, in our own stories. And may you just be encouraged to also tell your own as we support others. I also, I'll say this, I'm drinking out of a cup today on this tea hour, main character energy. So a lot of my life I lived as the supporting role, but now I'm really taking ownership of my own story so that, yeah, my future ancestors also will be able to look back and not really question. There's really not room for interpretation because I'm pretty clear in how I would like to be remembered. So I'm sure maybe a few of you are curious too, that long, long eulogy that I used to say. It was like a whole page. Now it's gotten down to 3 words of how I would like to be remembered. And I'll share them with you. It's just be loved deeply. That's it. Pretty simple. That's how I would like to be remembered. And so, yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here and being a part of your story.
Yay. That was so that was like the medicine we needed in a really human way. I feel like,
Mm,
especially right now, there's so much noise and chaos and fear and uncertainty, and that's on one plane, and you kind of took us above that plane and below that plane into like what really matters more. So start by saying thank you for that. Definitely let people know where they can get held if they want to go and get V's book.
Yeah.
And what an amazing initiation, right? To have someone be so willing, right? A lot of doulas first initiation, if you will, is much different than that. To have someone that you love so much that's so willing, and it's, it's professional work, sure, but it's absolutely personal work too. That you're doing, that
Mm,
you love them like that. So that's a
yeah.
wonderful, powerful story, and I love that she completed her goals. I mean, to go to Peru and to finish the book, like talk about squeezing every drop out of her life.
Seriously.
Gorgeous.
Seriously, yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Erin.
I just have to say, like, I think that, of course, I have to think about Belle
Yeah,
Right.
and
yeah,
capturing
Totally.
her legacy. And when you said, that you have the one voicemail from your dad and that's it. How many people I've met who just say, "Oh, I wish I could just hear their voice,"
yeah,
and how simple it is. And that's the only thing she's given me permission to do is when I go to visit her, go to the hospital, then I say, "Hey, can I just turn my phone on and start recording?" And she always gets sad,
Beautiful.
but then she always says, "Sure." And we're pretty much telling stories to the nurses. She's not telling stories directly to me. She's telling them the story of our friendship, the story of her life, and all of that kind of thing. And I think it's so hard for people in that moment, for a lot of people to know how precious their story is and
yeah.
how powerful their voice is. And
Hmm.
How much
she
we say, how special it is to us when it's what we have left.
Totally.
exactly. And I love that, she really was thinking about her kids because that's the hardest part for people. Belle has three young children
Mhm.
too.
Really.
I don't want to leave them, but what can I leave them? I can leave them this legacy. I can show them that these are the things that we can do. So I just thought that was so. I know that brave is overly used sometimes, but it was such a
Mm,
beautiful, brave thing for her to
Yeah.
claim and step into. And I'm grateful that you share her story because I think
mhm,
it will, we're all going to die. We're all going to be her one
mhm,
day, right? So it opens up that space of, oh, it's not just my story, it's their story. It's their story. It's my ancestor story.
Yeah.
I think people might have an easier time, again, if they see that it's not just the world revolved around them. We've grown
mhm,
up in a society, in a community where it's like, don't be self-centered, don't be selfish. And I think a lot of people have a hard time when they tell their story of thinking like,
Feels
oh,
that way. Yeah.
I'm becoming, self-centered or selfish, when it's the complete opposite. It's this expansive space for no beginning, no end. I love that you were talking about,
mhm.
this quantum field because that's really where our stories get to continue to live. It's not this tiny little me
Yeah.
space.
Right? That's why I love that movie Interstellar so much
Hmm.
because it's these threads,
Yeah.
which is such a cool visual, especially for me as an artist. I need to see visuals. So when that movie came out, you were able to not only feel, but witness the chords of love, which is the story we're telling. We're
Yes.
telling one epic love story across generations, across lineage, across race, across it's just this is one large human story.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's so simple and it's coming down to this essence of love and
And we're so
recognizing
hungry
just how
for it,
quantum.
right? Like we need it so much. It's the food that we didn't know we were like that we were starving for, right? It's so
Hmm.
simple. My 16-year-old son just told me a few days ago that Interstellar is his favorite movie, and I felt so proud. I'm like, oh,
Right?
you get that? Yeah.
Wow. Incredible. Incredible. Yeah.
I also loved that you pointed out, everyone has a different version of our story. You
Hmm.
could ask my mom who I am, or my daughter who I am, or Lauren who I am, and they're going to give you different versions of me, and all are going to have some truth and all are going to be incomplete. and
Yeah.
to take the time with someone to slow down and really figure out what it is to you before you die, and to the
Hmm.
reconciliation that can give you and the clarity that can give to others.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's been one of the most, I don't like to use the word challenge in a way because sometimes it has, that's for sure. I guess it was such a powerful kind of invitation after my father died, because, as I mentioned, how big of a personality, and he was a really unique and complex individual. And so I find, and it's so much, we know this is such a common thing after someone dies, the body, right, is going through so much integration of this new reality without this person. And when it happened during COVID for our family, there was nervous system jolt, of course, right? So we as a family had all different versions of my father, and there was this like very interesting, he did such a great job. At the end of his life, I was living back in Mexico, and I'll never forget. I was like sitting there in the Yucatan, and I had my little hape. I sit with hape, and I was sitting hape, which is a shamanic snuff, and it really helps clear the mind. So I'm sitting with this tobacco, and administer it to myself, and I was in deep grief, and I was like weeping and crying my little sniffles. I'm like snotting out hape, and then I kind of looked up at the sky and I said, "Dad, you slash me slash we played the perfect character for me to be here now. Touche, my friend. That is good. This is all, you're just story now. Oh gosh, you're just a story. For those that didn't get to meet you, which is, also okay, but like now you get to just be a story that we tell. And that's when it really hit me that the quantum field just is the I am.
Yeah.
And so, of course, we all have these versions, and we're fighting over story currently in this holy war of who we know to be, different masters and all of this. And we're literally still fighting wars, and people are dying over story. Fascinating to really look at. And there's a book called Story Wars, also interesting to support yourselves with, to dig deeper into, learning more about this at a very macro lens of how literally Hollywood was built to create agendas. And now that's shifting. And now we're in a new frontier. And we are in the Renaissance, the collective Renaissance globally. I love it that Netflix, I'm a multicultural person. I'm Hispanic and Chinese and French and Puerto Rican. So I have like a bloodline that represents the world, which allows me to feel into, different aspects. So China's not as scary for me. It helps me go, oh, okay. It's a very funny thing that happens. But now we're seeing Netflix, right? Look at the kaleidoscope that Netflix is. It's no longer just Americana stories. It's now a whole tapestry. And that's what I really love about a lot of the indigenous ways is all beings being one being. And when we can really, really feel into the storylines of others outside of us, that's where I believe the world will soften and shift. And that's where we get to be a part of. Such a gift. Such a gift.
I feel like authentic truths are the only medicine that we really need right now. And we are living in a world of stories that are narrating whatever somebody wants it to be, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
here's a truth. No, here's my truth. No, here's this story. Which one do you believe? Which path are you going to follow? When
Mm-hmm.
really what you're saying is, what's your story? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is your path? What is going to continue? Um, my meeting before this, one of the things she kept saying is, the reason I'm doing all this healing, the reason I'm doing all this work is because we are one. And if I'm doing this, if I'm telling my stories, if I'm capturing it, it can't help but reverberate around me. Like, and I do think that this work and death work has, I mean, me and Erin can attest to this of how much it's grown, that
Mm.
it's going out to people in a way that you couldn't have expected, right? And I really think that when people can find the stability in their own self and their own story, then we don't have to listen to other people's stories. Or is that a truth?
Mm.
Is that a belief? And so
Mm-hmm.
as simple as stories may seem to people, it is the literal essence of what a human is. It is what we have passed down generation, generation. And when we've lost that, it's like we've lost ourselves. So we look for stories elsewhere instead of it.
It's the imprint, it's the reference point, it's the language.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So good.
Very cool. Well, I
I
wish.
love it. And I can't wait to hear more about you guys' stories too. So keep them coming. Yeah, have been so moved by, I don't remember how I came across what you guys were creating. I think I came across you, Lauren, at first, and I was just like, whoa, this, give me more of this. I want to feel, maybe
Yeah.
even put a period there. I just want to
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
I want to feel. And I thank you for, yeah, carving such a beautiful, uh, say, yeah, a space for others. And it's really inspired me in a lot of the work, even after like I had already started Metamorpho, but this kind of all started to sent me on a voyage, right? Of seeing others that were, and now my LinkedIn, amazing how LinkedIn has shifted. I was such a weird one on LinkedIn for years, and now it's like death doulas and like all these like psychedelic researchers. I'm like, yes, LinkedIn.
The whole landscape
Yes.
has progressed a lot. Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. It's great.
Belle
Yeah.
is the most brilliant human I have ever known, and anything she says is gold. So that class was really, really special. Uh,
Yeah.
Katie, do you have a hot A in front of you?
Oh my gosh, yeah, you were talking about it. I've been kind of eyeing it this whole time because I was like, I like held up my Caribe. I was like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
I work
Amazing.
with
Amazing.
another amazing group who works with folks in Peru, and it's so beautiful. But I do have a question. Man, so much of what you were speaking to just really resonated, especially just like your dad sort of being like literally being a magician. But my dad, and you mentioned, I think you were mentioning the movie Big Fish, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of how I see my dad, like very like used to have a very contentious relationship, but he is this enigma. He's a mystery. Like just what is, like kind of a hermit, kind of not. Like people love him when he's out and about. And I remember him being larger than life when I was a kid. And um, but never really knew who he was. And
Mm,
and there's a ton of like healing that's had to happen with our relationship, a lot of abuse, things like that. And I set like a long timeline for our relationship and like, and now that's totally opened up and I feel like it's so much healed and I want to know what his actual story is. And so when I sit with people who are dying, like I'm kind of used to them, right? Like not being comfortable and it takes time.
mhm,
And with my dad, it's like I've known you my whole life. And even still, when I'm trying to ask
mhm,
questions, like there's just such a block.
mhm,
It's like he's a master at talking around things, but never just like
mhm,
his truth. And
mhm.
I mean, even like a week ago, he like sent this mysterious text and he's like, I may have some news to share with you soon. And I'm like, what
Mm,
the like, and I've been telling everybody who knows him about it. And they're like, what the hell? Like, he must be dying. Like, what's happening? It's like he would
wow.
never. And I
Sure.
granted, I have no idea what it could be, but that's just what I mean. Like, he's such a mystery. So my question is, um, yeah,
Mm,
what's the dance there? Like, I would like to know his story, but maybe it really is just kind of, keep showing
yeah.
up and like not getting discouraged. Maybe I've kind of like arrived at the answer already, but I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah, see a lot of myself in what you shared. There was a time that I think whenever we hear these types of things, we relate it again to our own story. That's what story does. It's really special. First of all, just a presence like, yeah, that your dad has this big announcement. That's definitely something to prepare for. And I'm curious now. I would love a follow-up with this because now I feel connected to your story more deeply. So thank you for sharing. And much love to Pops. I know that all too well of kind of the mystery. Although my dad's a little different. He talked about his story all the time. His story was very important to share, and we heard it all the time. I was like, got it. Love you. No questions on that front. But it was a time that I thought of to kind of bridge the father-daughter binary, really special moment that I thought of before my father passed. His mother and his brother and his little sister had died. And they were all pretty close within like a couple years. It was just fast. And I could sense this grief in his spirit. And I had already been starting my own work of being an active listener. And so I remember saying to him, "Hey, Dad," because I paused that, like, you know how family dynamics, we know this all too well. It just usually conversation just goes and it just goes wherever it wants to go and it just splurges all over the place. And there's not a lot of, oh, wait, not, I speak for myself. Whoa, don't want to speak that on. We're still working on it. Okay. But I've been the one to kind of pattern interrupt with asking questions. So I have a little app. There's two that I recommend. There's one called Getting Closer. You might have heard of it. And then there's another one called the and it's a question game that you can actually toggle for family. Now you're getting to see me and my partner. But you can ask it for, you can do family, you can do relationships, you can do first date. So it's called the and I was featured on it. If you go dig deep on YouTube, you'll see some of the viral videos of me and my ex-husband asking each other important questions that led to the eventual divorce. But it was a good thing for this app to be a part of my family. And it allowed us to start opening the field of asking deeper questions rather than just surface level. So my dad was used to this. I share that first to add a little context because it's not like it was like out of left field. He had kind of known me for being the one in the family to just really get more emotionally available for him. So I said, "Hey, Dad, do you want to play a game? I can feel that there's maybe some stuff we haven't really talked about. Your brother dying, Grammy Pat dying, your sister dying. I would imagine that that has a lot to do with some of your hermiting that you spoke of. Men don't have a lot of spaces to share these things these days. The mental health for men has been a huge study of mine. Creating spaces for men to share, especially boomer men. Whoa, my heart feels so tender for those archetypes. So creating a gentle voice as that great mother archetype, right? Something that I sit with, that's part of the death doula. Really presencing, because we're all going to die, as we mentioned. So it's like whether he's going to be dying now or if it's 10 years from now, whatever it is, 20 years from now, it is what it is. But it's going to happen. So creating that reciprocity for the listening and like pulling it, excavating it out of especially our fathers or, grandfathers, men in our lives. This hasn't been modeled anywhere really, so this is a new frontier of coming to be an active listener and asking better questions. So that's helped my family immensely. They all know, oh, if we get on a long drive with Elle, she's going to pull out the app. Here we go. And I pull it out and it'll be like, I want to finish with this. It was like, I wouldn't have been able to know about my parents' sex life had I not opened up this app, because it asked something about, like, I don't know how it happened, but I was like, wait, Mom, this is after my dad died. Were you and Dad still having sex? She's like, of course we were. Like, it opened up a presencing with my mom and I and a bridge to like speak woman to woman, not mother daughter. To again take those narratives out of mother daughter. Now it was woman to woman to be like, were you and your husband still intimate? Like, I loved that. And I would have never known had I not brought out that app. How that conversation led to that, I don't remember. I
Say
don't
the
recall.
name of the app again, please, Eleven.
There's two I recommend. So there's one called The who
The
I've done
and,
a
and
lot of
that's
work
the
with.
one that's the show. I know I've seen episodes of that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
That's what made me a viral meme crying on the internet all over
Okay.
yeah, all over. Uh, that was fun. That was Lynette Sine's story. And then that's the they have an app that I really love. And then they have one called Get Closer. And you can use it I use it on all my, well, now I'm not dating, I'm in partnership, but I use it on all my first dates just to, help pattern interrupt. Because again, we just do that. This is what we do, is we fill space. And so it helps my brain to go, actually, that's a way better question. And I lead also events in authentic relating with these apps as well. Sometimes it'll help me, come up with that authentic relating coming together. So death doulas coming in with authentic relating exercises for the families would change the world.
Yeah.
Woo! Right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah. Oh, this has been so good, and I'm excited to look at these apps. There's something about just the healing that can happen in a family from getting to know each other at different stages in your life too. Like what you were just saying about your mom, like woman to woman. It's it create they always say like this is your mom's first time being a mom too,
right.
right? And it's that human connection of, yeah, we're a family. We didn't choose it, but like, who are you? And what a beautiful gift to be able to really see the people that have been around you your whole life who've maybe hurt you and caused trauma or brought you the most joy ever,
Mm,
to remember that they are too only a human on this journey with you.
mhm.
And it just sounds really fun too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It can create it starts edgy in the beginning, of course, and then I find that now years later they can expect it. So now I can die happy going, I did such a good job of creating these conversations. I will be known in my family.
Yeah, it's part
And
of your
I
legacy.
speak about that with my mom. I'm like, I might go before you, mom. So I'm just letting you know, like, I know that I will be dying happy knowing I gave so much effort to creating community and closeness with our family. But we have to be the ones, right? We have to be the ones. So thank you for asking that, Katie. And I would love, love, love to, yeah, I'll hold you on my metaphorical altar too as that conversation continues with your pops. Much, much love to him and the, yeah, healing that comes from his, yeah, whatever it is that he desires to share. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll
amazing.
see. Thank you.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Well, that was
Thank you
heartwarming.
guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so much.
Elizabeth, for sharing your knowledge. And again, thank you everybody who's watching this. We look forward to seeing everybody again next month. Oh, do you have on was that on the main page, like how people can contact you if they want to
Yeah,
find you?
I can go back to that. And also, yeah, I just want to invite all of you, whoever you are, all of you who are listening now, and then those who watch later, that I host immersive experiences. This is a lot of the insides of what we create. So I have another retreat coming up in Sedona. If you're ever interested, this is a lot of what we do. So it's funerary rites, but it's metaphorical. It doesn't have to be literal that we're all going to die. So it's just preparing for that time and excavating story and really supporting individuals come into themselves. So got some fun stuff coming up already for 2026, and continue to stay tuned over at my page. I share about what's happening, and you're always welcome in my circles. Thank you for yeah for tuning in.
Thank you. All right. Well, this has been wonderful, and hope everybody has a lovely day who's watching this, or as good of a day as you can. How about that?
There we go.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us, Eleven.
Thank you.
Nice to see
Thank
you,
you.
Katie and Lauren.
Bye.